Hello, and welcome to episode 1, our first official episode of Curated Conversations with GRAAHI. We're your hosts, Calvin.
And I'm Kaylon, and today's episode is titled, Be a Man.
Health can be a daunting topic of discussion, and luckily you don't have to tackle that alone. Curated Conversation is a podcast produced, hosted, directed by the Grand Rapids African American Health Institute, and we're here to educate the masses on the pillars in which we operate, CARE, and that stands for community, advocacy, research, and education.
We're excited today. Together, we will deep dive into the minds of healthcare professionals, community leaders, and other influential figures to create engaging conversations that we believe will benefit the Black and Brown communities in which we serve. We want you all to come along for the journey because we all know conversations are meant for two
or more.
Let's do it.
And today, we have the privilege to interview and speak with Samuel Jones, a trained multicultural therapist engaging in both family systems and cognitive behavioral therapies.
We're super excited to have Samuel Jones on with us as he brings his extensive knowledge from the therapy community to our platform, as he is the lead therapist and founder of Wisdom Center Counseling Services, with their mantra being well-being one day at a time. Sammy, we're super excited to have you today. How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I am ecstatic to be here with the fellas.
Yes. Should be a great episode.
Love that. You know, we got the guys together. It goes right into the title of Be a Man. Just to give you a little preface of, you know, what we were thinking is an ill stereotype of what it means to be a man. And we're going to get down to, you know, those stereotypes and how that's shaped and created trauma and stresses for down the line. But we want the people to know who Sammy Jones is.
Sammy, lay it on us.
and we want you to take us down this path
of
who you are and what led you to your professional therapy journey.
Sure. So first and foremost, Samuel Jones. I'm a husband of 8+ years. My wonderful, illustrious, beautiful Flint side, Bedrock side wife, Tova, has been holding me down for actually more than 8 years, but 8 years of marriage, and she has been my amazing rock and the lover of my life. And so I always love to just shout her out because a lot of people in the community actually know her, and she's made an impact in various people's lives for years, being over in the Rue, Grand Rapids. And so I'm really excited to have her in my life. Also 2 kids, man. 2 kids under 2. They are
2 kids under 2.
2 kids under 2, man.
It's a blessing.
They are. It's a
Got
blessing.
a handful, huh?
It's a blessing. But they are challenging their father every single day, man. But that's just that's my life. So excited about that. Born and raised Grand Rapids. You know, spent a little bit of time in Louisville, Kentucky. But beyond that, have been in and around the community most, if not all, of my life. And it's been just a great time, man. Just to connect with all things education here. You know, I was homeschooled for a little bit. You know,
okay.
I don't know why. I asked my mom. I said, "Was something wrong with me?" You know,
she had ways. She wanted to make sure you got what you needed.
Can imagine a black kid getting homeschooled. That's rare. So far, I got homeschooled a little bit, but ended up going to the KPS, Kentwood Public School System, Grand Valley State alum, Grand Rapids Theological Seminary alum, and so been here most of my life, man, and journeyed through what it means to live, to thrive, to work here, and have not left yet, which is also a rarity. You know, you get a lot of Grand Rapids folk who are up and out of here, and don't decide to stay for a variety of reasons. And I'm sure your podcast will get into.
Well, I'm gonna say something here, right? Because Calvin is kind of, you guys are looking at each other in the mirror. Calvin, how many times do you leave Grand Rapids?
Never. Can't leave the city unattended.
No. There's a running lovely joke in our friendship,
sure,
in our group of friends, where Calvin, he loves this city of Grand Rapids, and he wears it on his sleeve wholeheartedly. Right. We'll be going to Detroit, out of state. Calvin's like, y'all catch me right here in Grand Rapids.
That's what's up, man. That's
enjoy your weekend. I'll be here. I got a cat to feed, you know.
Yeah, and that's what's up, man. Yeah. So like people like us, man, we get a chance to, as we age, as we get older, if there's things politically, religiously, whatever that we want to affiliate ourselves with or be a part of, we have the background information to be able to really help our community,
Absolutely.
and that could be in the cards for any one of us. But in that space, I look forward to being here and thriving here with my family, due to the fact that, again, when you're here, you kind of understand some of the background issues of the city, of the people here, the people that move here, all those types of things. And I think we stay because there's this space in people's lives where, everybody needs some level of support or assistance and help. And for me, strategically, I've wanted to help Black and brown folk who come from low income situations, folk who have been churched, and also have been hurt. And so all these different things that are synonymous, at least since the 80s with Grand Rapids, have been reasons I also stay. Right. And so God has allowed me to enjoy be a therapist by trade over the past 5 or so years. And in the mental health arena, I think the reason I got into that is a variety of reasons, right? It's this aspect of, my own family. We've had our challenges when it comes to relationship communication, our own challenges with, things like depression or anxiety. That's that background. But also, I remember when I was not in the mental health field, I was working at, a local retail store, and I was in middle management, and I would always have these prolific, crazy, deep conversations with people.
John Doe comes in, he talks to you, and next thing you know, he's telling you about 3 years of things that's just going on in his life.
Like, we got sales to get. I need you to stock the sales floor.
It's about volume.
Right. I need you to get this back room inventory, But in that thing, I think I started seeing in my own life, I said, this don't make no sense. Why am I in this? What is my purpose in this? And I think that throughout the course of my life, I've always been in a space of having conversations with people where we get deep, we get layered, and we talk about what transformation looks like. And so it just made sense that my life calling actually connected with an opportunity to do so in a different way. And so counseling was the route that I ended up taking.
It's amazing.
Yeah, no, that's truly inspiring. Obviously, coming from a Grand Rapidian, it's really inspiring and cool that you're staying here, staying active in the community, and following that dream that you had through different outlets. So again, really appreciative of you being here, and we hop right into the convo here. Yep. With our first question, kind of a loaded question, but what is therapy, and what are some of the more common forms of therapy that people in general can utilize? Yeah,
sure. So therapy, I want you to think that, there's a lot of forms. You hear physical therapy, you think, what's it called? Equine therapy, which is therapy for horses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Equine. But there's also this aspect of mental health related therapy, right? Mm-hmm. For that person, and when they have thoughts, feelings, behaviors, emotions that they, for whatever reason, can't seem to get out of the flux of the challenges of life, and they feel burdened or they feel overcome by certain circumstances. That is where you never know what background information or things in the back of someone's mind are challenging them. And so in a relationship to what therapy is, it's an opportunity to get some tools, some tips, some tricks from someone who is trained to help you get out of the background information of your mind, and sometimes bring that stuff to the forefront.
Right.
All right. So I will say that's what therapy really is. It's an opportunity to get out of our heads, out of our hearts, and get to a space where we can grow in some way, shape, or form instead of being stuck. And so with various forms of therapy, that can be anything from the therapy that I do, which you read, cognitive behavioral therapy, dealing with your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, to...
And what is that? Can you because that's what you do.
That is.
What is cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yeah, so I'll give you the basic. I said it again, but we want to make sure that you have clarity in regards to the thoughts that you're thinking, and then also recognize the feelings that you may be feeling, emotions, love, joy, peace, but also in that space of how that connects to what you do in a daily situation. Your behavior is the most simplest way I can explain it. These are therapies that have been around for years.
Right.
And being able to support people with those three things, you never know how much stuff you got going on in just those three pieces and how they're connected for you. There are other therapies. I can name a very important one that a lot of people are going through right now is this thing called trauma, right?
Right.
And people who are trained in this thing called eye movement desensitization, EMDR. EMDR are getting this type of therapy to, really focus on bringing their memories and events to a place where they can actually make rational movement through day-to-day situations instead of being triggered all the time. And so there's EMDR, there's a thing called DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, focuses more on the feelings and emotional space of people's lives and bringing rational thoughts to that, to so many other ones. That I can name.
We appreciate that. Because that gives people the premise of, what therapy essentially is coming from someone that's a professional in that community. And that's important because in our communities, we've heard so many other definitions of what therapy can be. Yeah. And typically it has a negative connotation coming from someone who does not understand what it is. So I hope that bridges the gap for a lot of people listening.
Yeah. We obviously understand as a collective here, therapy is a really useful tool in one's mental health endeavors. We obviously know that it can be underutilized. And I think a lot of those underutilizations and misunderstandings about therapy start at a young age. What are your thoughts on that and why?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We go through various traumas and situations in our life when we're young, adolescent, childhood, where when there's things that come across our lives, what do? We typically store the information in our brains. I won't get super technical, but in our brains, and those memories take root. They take root in our identity. They take root in our personality and the expression of our personality. And in those spaces, then all of a sudden, as we continually grow, we begin to be rooted into these things and these practices. And some of them can be really not beneficial.
Paralyzing, stressors. I mean, I'm going to be real. I'm not old, right? I'm 28. Some would say I'm old.
Okay.
And some would say I'm young, right?
Yeah.
So I agree. There were times in young adulthood where you're unknowingly keeping these things inside. And it could be for a multitude of reasons. You want to affirm other people's actions.
You want to be affirmed.
You want to be affirmed, right?
Yeah.
And it's coming from a place that at the time you probably believe is the right thing to do, right? But it's probably a survival method of just getting through the moment. And that thing comes back to get you sometimes.
It can. And I think that in the ways that it does, we often have triggering events or triggering situations, or the way someone said something to us, it triggered a form of communication that we now got back. I'm getting mad. I'm getting sad. I'm getting frustrated with how I'm going to respond to what's happening in front of me, even though I have no idea that it was something that had to do with my past.
Right.
And so I think that, how we deal with those things can be different. Some people, in my profession may deal with the here and now. You'll hear that term. Like, we're just going to deal with how you're being impacted right now. Others will go back to, let's look at your past and see how this may be informing how you navigate situations, but knowing that we got to get some healing from back there to even go forward.
Right.
And so I think it all depends on what you're navigating with that person.
Right.
But you're right. A lot of it does happen in our earlier time of our lives. And again, based on the noun of things, a person, a place, and a thing, those things have impacted us in some way, shape, or form, being little and small.
Yeah. You're right. And speaking about impact, and we brought up some key terms that some people may or may not know about, and those things are triggers, stressors. And we want to ask for these young men with the topic of be a man. What are some of the most common stressors or triggers that you're seeing in the youth population today? And then what are some things that you guys are doing to support them?
Yeah. So I would say some of the top stressors that I'm seeing in young black and brown boys, teens, adolescents, whatever term you want to use, we're seeing a lot of secondary trauma, for youth, and secondary trauma meaning they weren't directly impacted themselves, but they heard by chance of one of their boys, or they saw someone actually get hurt in terms of a situation, and those things often cases impact them because it's like, well, that's my boy, so that's me too. Someone get arrested, well, that's me too. And so in those spaces, secondary trauma is a huge one, of being impacted. Also, I think I'll say this as a stressor too. Many of our young men are fighting for significance. There's this thing of saying, I, as a young man, have a role wherever I am. And in that role, sometimes people parlay, or sometimes people stress me down so much that I don't matter, or how I operate in a system or in a place doesn't matter. And so you try to take away my significance or my contribution, no matter where I'm at in society, school, community, social media, with my girlfriend, wherever that is, my significance is lowered by you parlaying me into a place where I don't matter, based on someone else or someone else's expression of their ethnicity, their race, their manhood. Yeah. And so a lot of times our black young teen boys get grouped up. And when they get grouped up, now all of a sudden, so it's all of us.
All of us,
it's all
right.
of us now. So I don't have any individuality in space where I can grow. And I think that's unfair. But it also speaks to those who have been already put in that grouping, who are in a space where it's just like, I just need to get a chance to share, my story. I need a chance to feel safe. There's various organizations who are working on safety for young men, and safety is important because it allows them to be secure in who they are. Number one, explore who they are, not just what society and media tells, but also allows them to explain and share what they've been through. Right. That promotes safety and security without creating a place of re-traumatization. And so in that space, that's another one. I think another one for me is, as I see young men, I got a chance to do this article with News 8, and that's with TV8, and they asked me, they said, Sam, what can we do to help our children? And I said to them, we got to help everyone adjust. Now, adjust is actually part of a diagnosing disorder as well. It's called adjustment disorder.
Okay.
And people in my profession will diagnose people with this as a way to say, well, they're not all the way dealing with anxiety per se, or they're not all the way dealing with depression per se, but maybe it's the space of they're adjusting to some new change in their life, some phase of life problem, something going on at home, a new marriage that they're now, that their parents are now in, or mom being alone trying to figure out life.
Right.
And so in adjusting to changes, imagine the changes that our young men are challenged with, like
on a day-to-day basis.
day-to-day.
I mean, waking up and just going to school and feeling like you said, I belong here. I've had a point in time where I was in class, and this is actually at Grand Valley State University. I love the university. It was very nice. I went into the classroom. I was the only black male in the classroom. I did not raise my hand for 3 classes straight. Yeah. I was older than everyone in the class. And I can't place a term on it, but I can place a feeling. And it was less than everybody in that room.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask something that everybody in here should know, or I should know. So I'm already feeling inferior to everybody. And it literally led me to feel that I didn't deserve the education that I was going there to get. And that's a little, vulnerable for me. But I think a lot of other people may feel that way from no matter where they're at.
No matter what the situation is,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think that's fair, because that's another one of those stressors. It's like, not only because that was true in the 80s, that was true in the 90s, it's still partly true now of many black and brown boys being one of few in their classrooms. And then, you can get into a whole nother other stuff about that. But I think that in that space, you create a space where guys at that age are feeling like they're doing life alone, and that just adds to it, or like in that space where they're trying to figure out how to accept and work through their core needs. Well, show me someone that looks like me that's going through my experience. You can't find a black teacher sometimes. You can't find a black administrator, a brown administrator. And then, like, where's the representation at to help me know that, okay, I can make it. And that representation sometimes looks like someone who is trying to always discipline or create a space of where you got to do this, this, and another.
Right.
Well, how can we just have these core conversations to bring out these stresses that young black men are going through or brown men are going through? So it's part of the aspect, yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, shout out to that.
Yeah, and we know a lot of the services and support that you touched on, young men don't always have access to, and a lot of those traumas from that can manifest along the road to adulthood. And we know one of the things you mentioned earlier that really can affect someone in that degree is identity issues. So why do men have a hard time dealing with identity issues?
Yeah, so I work from the vantage point of this is author by the name of John Eldredge. All right, so it's a good person for anybody to check him out. Men, check out John Eldredge's book. Specifically, there's this book called Wild at Heart. Okay. All right.
Is he a therapist too?
He is not a therapist.
He's not?
But
he's giving some game, though, huh?
Okay. Tap in.
He's an honorary. He's an honorary member.
And you want to know what's so funny about therapy is that in therapy, for us therapists, we call on information from a wide variety of knowledge bases and not just therapists.
That's amazing, though.
Because it helps give you a really good worldview. With that being said, John Eldredge talks about these 4 concepts. I'm going to just talk about, like, he talks about this concept called the wound, a concept called lying, a concept called the vow, and a concept called false selves. And when it comes to identity, like the wound is often cases this thing where we recognize something that's we've just been talking about. Something has happened. Something has impacted you where it is created a space where you're hiding in something, or you've repressed a thought in the back of your mind, or you literally are masking. Like you got this mask, and some people be like, "Dog, that's bull." Like that's not
gonna lie,
real.
you would catch it too. Some people get their masks switched up. And they start, I say you go out like, all right, I'm gonna be a professional. This is my professional me.
Exactly.
But then you'll put on your, your authentic mask, and now you're tripping out like, hold on, what am I supposed to be doing?
We talked about that at an event, actually, at GRAAHI hosted.
We did.
But men do that. And so out of that wound, now what ends up happening is we start operating out of a lie. A lie meaning in some way, shape, or form, it's something that we told ourselves that we had to do to protect, Band-Aid that wound that we experienced way back when. Or it's something that somebody told us and put on us. And so here we are in this state of mind where now we're operating where we're really wounded from someone. We're lying on top of it. Yep. And then we begin to create vows based off that lie. We create vows where we're telling people these things that I'm never going back to this space that hurt me so much, that challenged me so much, that put me in this space. And I'm going to now fixate on being this person, false self, that not is necessarily really me. And I think that in that space, man, I think some of the things that we are challenged with, most often men are challenged with, and I say most often, it's not all the time, with their father wounds. They're challenged with wounds from, a dad who was absent, or a dad who didn't know how to dad, right. or a dad who was, present in all the things that it means to be a man, except being just my friend or father,
right?
And so in that space, a lot of men deal with father wounds. But then beyond that, we can get into wounds like the skin that we're in.
That's the one that I want to speak about. I love them all, and I think for all men that are going through this walk of life, they have this false sense of masculinity and what that should look like. Or the lack thereof, and without having a father around, they have a lot of friends the same age that are going through the same walks of life, and it's like, hey, you got to be tough. Don't cry. Don't laugh too much. We going in here, be quiet. Keep your mug on, and that shows pride, or that shows what a man is supposed to be, which is when you grow up and you see a man that's exemplifying all of those things. It's refreshing, but then it kind of is like, man, I knew this back in day one.
Yep. Yeah. And you're talking also about the idea or the identity of feeling safe and the identity of being vulnerable. Because in those spaces, when we're trying to deal with safety, which is pretty much all the time, out of safety, we fear. Out of safety, we fly away. Out of safety, we freeze, which have to do with the executive function of the mind and the brain. But in that space, when we're steadily trying to do that or fix something or fawn to something, like here we are as men, it's based on this idea that I just want to protect who I am or hold near and dear to me because in that space I'm challenged with the fact that, you know what, if someone comes and tries to take something from me out of fear, or someone tries to expose me out of shame, here I am trying to figure out what to do about it, and I don't know what to do. Yeah. That's where vulnerability plays a role. And brotherhood plays a role.
Right, 100%. Having a village, like, Cal's, the host, but he's also my guy. He's my guy. I showed you a text in my phone not too long ago where I had to take a mental health day from work.
Yeah.
Right? We had podcast stuff to do. We had work for programs to do. The first text I get in my day is, hey, brother, I know you're going through something. It's okay. Let me know if you need something. And for Cal, I don't know if you knew what you were doing in that moment. Maybe you did, but you were kind of creating that safe space, right? For me to be vulnerable, I guess you would say, and say, you know what, I'm not feeling up to this right now.
Yeah. No, I remember specifically saying, like, I know you're taking a mental health day, so, I want you to take full advantage of that. But,
that's facts.
A phone call away. So
that's facts. Yeah. I got another question for you, Sammy. We can call you Sammy now, right?
Hey, man,
like we got to know you real good. We call you
Just
Sammy.
Don't call me Sammy like the singer, man. He got dressed and everything right now.
What, they gonna get it? That's another episode,
man. I'm like that. I don't want to be that Sammy.
We got you. But so you broke it down the philosophies, and in therapy, what tools is somebody really getting to cultivate that safe space when they're coming back home and they're dealing with that identity issue, whether it's with self or dealing with the environments around them? What things is it? Affirmations? I know people lean on meditation or the tools that are probably most promoted, I would say. Are there some things that you guys are giving them that they can utilize?
Yeah. So first and foremost, yes, but that's the secret sauce of the Wisdom Center. What I will say,
this is what we do here.
Y'all want the secret sauce?
Hey, what's it? Good burger? This like the good burger right now.
What y'all doing?
We're coming to collect.
All right, what y'all doing to help these men out here?
There I go.
So I can give you the secret sauce. You got to pay me for a session.
Just a little bit. We're gonna come see you.
But what I will say is this, and I'm gonna make it really simplistic, bro. One thing that I will encourage, because this is something, let's just say a guy does not go out to seek therapy, right? But he can get community. Let me encourage that. Let me encourage a tip and tool of, why don't you go get some community with some brothers that care? Now, in Grand Rapids alone, they got breakfasts down at Link that they be having, like breakfasts with men. Can't think of his name right now, but there's a guy that hosts a group of guys. Typically they meet for breakfast.
And that's Link?
At the Link. Okay. Saturday opportunities at Pastor Jerry Bishop's space, you know what I'm saying, where men can link up and do different things. And so let me tell you, like, community is so important. When 3 years ago, I went to this church, and, everybody's religious. That's totally cool. But I went to this church, and in this church, I had never, ever been a part of a small group of men other than my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated Rue. You know what I'm saying? Like,
shout out to them boys.
So like in that space, other than that, like being a part of a group of guys who did three things for me. One of their mantras was, we want to share life. And in a group of guys, if you're not in a space where you're sharing life, being vulnerable, being honest, telling them when you got marital issues, telling them when you feel like you're on the edge of just doing something that's going to destruct your life, when you're in a space in your life where you're like, man, like I need to talk to somebody right now. It's 3 a.m.
Yeah.
If you don't got that, that's a challenge,
Yep.
right? And then in a group also, you have an opportunity to pursue whatever purpose it is that you're trying to navigate. Every group should have a purpose. And in that space, if you don't have a purpose, whether it's God, whether it's some level of understanding the universe, whether it's some space of trying to challenge yourself to grow, you know, economically, spiritually, whatever that may be, that category, and it's purposeless.
Right.
And so having a group that's filled with purpose, and then lastly, investing in others is a huge part of that group that I was a part of. That meant that we would serve each other, serve in spaces in the community, whether it was like ICCF and helping build a house,
Right.
or literally going to volunteer at the Rhythm Run for
Right.
GRAAHI, like whatever that meant. That's something that we began to do. And so let me tell you the importance of a group, because in a group, in therapy, in that space, one thing that I encourage guys to do who may or may not go to therapy is when you join a group, now you're saying that, okay, I'm willing to be transparent enough to learn from someone who may or may not have my experience. It gives me an expanded worldview. It gives me an opportunity to apply what some people have already lived in their lived experience. And then lastly, I get a chance to, at the end of the day, get to know somebody different than me.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, all of us, even though there's a lot of brown persons in this room, we all different.
100% different.
You know what I'm saying?
Think different, been through different stuff.
Exactly.
But we, hopefully have may not even be a connection there in the moment until you start having that dialogue.
And that's the important part, is dialogue. You said it. Like if we can talk, if we can chop it up, if we can conversate about the things that are going on in our life, this is a start to the road to now using all the other tips and tricks and tools that a therapist will give you. But we got to have a starting place before we get into, meditative states, or doing some level of journaling, or doing some level of thought logs, not a thought log.
We're gonna have closed captions for y'all. Y'all need them right now. This is a different podcast.
Someone get the transcript.
Right. It's on health, a little bit of wealth.
Thought logs, where you literally are writing down your thoughts, seeing how they are being managed, or how you're working through them from day to day, and how that then impacts your behavior. Beyond those types of tools, you got to start with community. And so guys that I would meet with, or that I'm meeting with, or will meet with from this podcast, like literally it's about, let's get you with a group of guys and let's do some exploration. Because if we go back to the teenage question, the young adult question, a lot of them feel like they're doing life alone, and so you keep creating that space of doing life alone, other than my work friends, right? Yeah. Other than the people that I see on a daily, because I got to grind out or hustle. But you change hustles, you forget people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right?
You'll go, you'll be working with somebody to be a best friend for 2 years.
And then you out.
Move states.
Yeah. I can't
2
find
years,
you.
Yeah, don't even know what's going on. How are you doing? Yeah. Got the same number, but just ain't talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's important. You're talking about community, and I think that brings a sense of empowerment.
Like you said, it's about building that foundation, that strong core at the base of who you are as a person that can be the starting point to embetterment. So
yeah, I think it's a good segue into when you spoke about vulnerability in that community and being transparent. Now, there's an intersection that a lot of men come to, and some pass through gracefully, and others need assistance, and that's the intersection of emotions and thoughts. So how should we, as young Black and brown men, navigate that intersection of emotions and thoughts, knowing the traumas we've been through as Black and brown men?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to give you a personal answer, okay? I want to give you a personal. Most of these have been personal, but this one's particularly personal. And I got to give you my frame and my worldview in this. Like, number one, I'm a Christian man, you know what I'm saying? I go to church, all those types of things. Not everybody does that. Cool. You go to the mosque, you're not religious at all, whatever, cool. For me, I'm a Christian man, and there's this scripture. It says, Proverbs 23:7, it says, as a man thinks, so is he. Like, a lot of people heard that. Like, you think like this, that's probably how you be, right? But that's where that comes from, this really wise guy named Solomon. But the other part of that scripture says, like, eat and drink, and people will say to you, but we often can tell their hearts aren't pure, or they don't really truly care. And so in this space and intersection between thoughts and emotions, I think we're dealing with, for me, I was dealing with my own life and experiences in terms of how I thought about different things. Again, third generation kid from a church-based setting, homeschooled for I don't know why, being ostracized because of my weight and how dark I was, even going to a public school when I did get there, to like dealing with, you know, being insecure about different things.
When did you start feeling that?
Man, high school.
High school.
Yeah. You know, do I act black enough? You know,
right.
I was coming from the country at that point. I was a Northeast kid, Grand Rapids, Plainfield. You know what I'm saying? That was me. To a kid that lived in Dorr, Michigan, like not D-O-O-R, D-O-R-R.
You know, Dorr.
Like the cows is my neighbors, you know what I'm saying? Like, and don't nobody look like me. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I remember, man, growing up, and we would pass this sign. It's gone now, but we would pass these letters on this fence, and the letters said K. And I was like, what's that mean?
Yeah.
And of course,
that's
I learned,
real deal.
You know what I'm saying? Like this was my town, my city that we moved to for whatever reason. And I think all those life experiences and learning all those things, and yet still being challenged to find home for me or safety and security for me, challenged my thought life, challenged my emotional life. And so I began to both feel insecure, feel like invalidated on who I was and my identity. The only thing I held to at that time was my religion. And in that space, that's what gave me strength. But even in that, like exploring my day to day with people, like, you know, my own people was like, yo, you ain't black enough, bro. You know, like you don't even talk like who are you? Like,
you go inside your house, you got to be a certain way with moms, your family. Yeah. Like all of us probably have experienced this. And I think the parents of us, right, coming from a survival type background where they want you to speak a certain way, dress a certain way, move a certain way, and conduct yourself in a certain way that they have seen will get you into a place of safety or a place where you have a foundation. But times have changed for us. So we almost have that switch, right? We go outside the house, we're totally authentic, but now it's like, oh, I want to adapt to this.
And you said it. Like, that was my story.
Adapt to this.
Remember I told you how, like, men, we repress or we mask up?
Yeah.
Like, that was me. I was masking all day long.
For real?
Right, for real. Like,
what does that look like? What does it look like for you in high school?
High school,
break that down.
High school, Sam. Number one, I played football. You know, I came out of high school with the opportunity to go play college football. You know, so I was somewhat good. You know, I was okay.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
But in that space, literally, football player, high academic achiever. But not everybody that looked like me could say that was their thing, right? Like, yo, okay, I got my football friends, so guess what? I'm gonna act like a footballer. You know, varsity athlete. That's what I'm act like. You know, whatever that means. But then you go into the classroom. Not every footballer is doing well in their books. Most of them's getting help. You know what I'm saying? Some way, shape, or form. I ain't need no help. I was smart.
Yeah,
that's pride right there. That's pride right there.
There you go.
I was smart.
He ain't need nobody. We'll let you tell your story right now, Sammy.
But really in that, like, I was like, you know, sometimes it meant dumbing myself down, which a lot of specifically black young men do. Like, you are intellectual. You were created to be resilient and amazing, and yet in some way, why did we dumb ourselves down?
You thinking they don't want to hear this smart talk right now?
You know, I'm gonna put a little slur and a little bit of slip in my slide. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just talk regular, just be honest, just be you. Yeah. But I think I did that, and so now you're talking about an expression of a personality, which may seem like, is this dude multi-personality because he operating with a mask? Which sometimes we do as black and brown people because we don't want to be exposed or we feel unsafe. And so that was my experience. And so you talk about this intersection of thoughts and feelings, you know, that was a part of me. And so out of that, that's not to include, you know, many of our young men, you know, I'll go general here, that when they're traumatized in some way, shape, or form, family member, situation, something happened on the block, whatever that is, now you introduce misinterpretation and miscommunication. Misinterpretation meaning that your world around you looks so befuddled, looks so crazy, looks so different than what you were raised in or what you wanted your world to look like, that you can't understand or interpret your world around you, right? And then that leads to how you communicate, which often cases is a miscommunication based off of that trauma. that you've been through.
Gotcha.
And so all of a sudden, like, you're trying to say things, express things, be things that are just like coming from the sludge in your brain that you can't get out of. Just, who am I? How do I really get out what I'm thinking without trying to see it through the lens of now all these traumatizing experiences? And so then the people on the other side don't understand.
Exactly. It's that connection barrier.
Yeah.
Right. No, you hit it on the nose, Calvin. That connection barrier, like just being young, and because you don't want to be in your mind disconnected, right? Like you don't want to be, you're in football and you know who you are and what you like to do, but you want to be a part of that or connected to them.
Exactly. You want that real, genuine connection, but in the first place, you're already battling with these internal turmoils.
Exactly.
So, the connections you're making don't tend to be genuine because of this mask that you're, consistently wearing. So,
that's 100%.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, for like what we do out of that, or what I often introduce in my sessions is, I want guys to begin to explore. One of the things I try to do to get guys to introduce this idea of healing from this, other than talking about safety and finding what it looks like to be secure in sharing their thoughts and emotions, is literally we try to help them explore like these areas of their lives. We try to help them make sense of and consider the depth of what they've experienced. You know what I'm saying? And so that just means that, we got to get to what's going on in your heart and soul. And those are big terms, right? Heart and soul. Right. What does that mean? That's your mind, your will, what you do, and your emotions. And I think that in that space, that's where I get into things like the thought log, where I'm like, let's track your thoughts. What are you thinking from situation to situation? What are you thinking from issue to issue? How does that impact your feelings, your emotions? In fact, do you even understand what it means to explore your emotions?
To even explore that process, because that's we use a terminology, daunting, right, Calvin?
Daunting.
So that thought journal or the Go ahead and give me the right term.
It's thought log.
The thought log. My bad.
That's what it's called.
Not the thought. My bad. The thought log could be a daunting task, but I've heard it from people just say sit down and write for 30 minutes. Is there any kind of focus? I know that you kind of give them in that moment without giving them too much of the sauce.
Yeah.
What are some focusing areas that people, when they sit down and get that piece of paper in front of them and that pen in front of them, and there are a million different things that has happened or that they feel are going to happen, what focus areas do you get them going with?
Yeah, well, I can answer that specifically and generally. I'll start generally. Number one, based on the issue that they come in with, what we call in therapy, they're presenting problems. All right, whatever those presenting problems in that they come in with. Let's say a guy comes in with a presenting problem of, I don't know, I'm always like dealing with a boss who's making me angry and it's impacting my home for whatever reason. Let's just say generally that's what's going on. Like, I want to get into the space of, okay, like what are you thinking when this particular boss or employee or whatever challenges you or triggers you to make you feel angry, frustrated? We can use a whole different sort of words. Typically with a guy with a thought log, I'm also going to give them, as I was getting to the emotions part, is like I want to give them some emotional vocabulary, because again, we talk about black and brown guys. I'm on a tangent here.
Right. You're right.
We don't always have emotional vocabulary. And so we're taught to repress how we feel, right? We're taught to repress how we feel because even those who come before us don't know how to
say I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, and annoyed.
All right, I have no idea what that really means. And so to be able to now give words to your feelings is just as important as a part of that thought log, and it kind of goes along with it. So that way you have your thought like, man, this employee is really pissing me off, or this employer really made me feel angry today because they demeaned something that I did, or they ridiculed me in front of my friends, or ridiculed me in front of me a person I was helping for whatever whatever that reason is.
Right.
I want you to write that down.
Right.
I want you to begin to say to me, let me know when we look back at that, what's happening from day to day. Is it more intense at certain times? Is there a frequency of that expression based off of certain triggers that are happening, or duration of that. And then that also lets me know, what I'm saying, like what your potential anger style is. That's a whole nother podcast.
Gotcha.
Like,
Anger style.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But what that style of that anger is when you express it, whether it's sneaky, whether it's dismissive, whether it's fear-based, whether it's shame-based. Those types of things are what we can get from you writing down your thoughts when they're specific to the presenting problem or the issue that you're having when you come into therapy.
Right.
So that's where we would kind of start when it comes to like a application of that.
Gotcha. I'm really happy you broke that down in a way that I feel most can understand. I seen a TikTok, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Kyle, and the TikTok guy was just making some sense of some things, and he said, if you want to understand yourself, write. If you want to understand the world, read. And that kind of gave me a perspective kind of in what you're saying right now.
That's good.
Yeah,
So
that just means I got to write more and read more. Huh?
always, right?
Yeah,
We're
for
about to
real.
get to it right after this podcast. But seriously, though,
Important.
the goal of that is to see them identifying areas of opportunity.
Yep.
Because it does not define you as a male or female, those things that are on that paper, right?
It doesn't.
It's only an opportunity for you to cultivate a safe environment. That's what I'm feeling from that.
That's true. And I would say, just as a supplement to what you're sharing, sometimes in writing things down, it does reveal some parts of you that you may not have known were there or present, right? Because if we're going back to one of the questions, how do we deal with identity? Well, as a man thinks, so is he. If I'm writing down my thoughts, there's a representation of there that may be true of me, or maybe a representation of this false self idea, going back, bringing it all full circle.
Right.
And so being able to understand what we're thinking about ourselves or what we're reading that informs our world around us gives us a chance to really navigate things from a day-to-day perspective and in terms of identifying factors.
Gotcha.
And just looking back at our scouting report here, I saw one of the things that we wanted to talk about was insecure attachment. So first, I want you to, if you don't mind, defining insecure attachment for us, and then kind of walking through that process and how are we able to work through that idea of insecure attachment with the people that we love.
So not everybody does this, and or some therapists do this at a really early age with their clients, right? They work with this thing called attachment theory. Okay. And really it just has to go with something's going on with your relationship history with people in general, or sometimes your most secure relationships with your mom, your dad, your adopted parent, whoever that may be in the history of who you are. And along the way, you began to be some style or expression of that security, right? That secure attachment, whether it's insecure in the terms of an avoidant fashion, which I'll get into, or some level of an anxiety fashion, based on worry. And so out of this space, what I often cases do with my clients is I have them take an attachment styles quiz. There's actually a free one available on the website, on the internet. You can go attachment styles quiz, and it'll bring it up.
Perfect.
And it'll let you, find out what style of attachment you may be dealing with in your own life, in your own relationships, whether you're married, have kids, or whatever. And so in that space, this helps really them see how they can relate and often properly attach, I would say, to close and distant relationships around them. I think with the people that are dealing with fear-based attachment, which fear is a primary emotion. Going back to, I want to make sure I'm using language that people can understand. There's a primary emotion. With fear, something often cases, again, has happened in people's lives where they now feel like what should have been a safe trusting environment with a person has now been scattered, you know, in a way that now when I deal with people today in the here and now, like I'm often cases led in worry, anxiety, and fear when I'm trying to learn how to trust somebody.
I'm thinking relationship right now. As a young man and being 28 years old, just the relationship aspect of being fearful of whatever it is, like you want to be that man for that other person. So I didn't want to cut you off, but I'm really feeling relatable to that piece though. And I'm sure there's a lot of other fellas that are like, you go into it strong. Don't get me wrong. Like we send them texts, we send the DMs, and we know what the plan is, you know, in our head, right? And it's probably leading with love from a good place. Yeah. Then you start getting into that quicksand and getting rooted into it. And it starts unveiling some things where it's like, okay, I really got to trust her word. She has to trust my word. And that's all that it is. I can't control this no more. And that's where, like, for me, it starts brewing. Like, I feel like I'm walking on glass.
And you know what's so crazy that, again, that's not every guy. Some of the other guys, right, are dealing with shame. And so they become avoidant in some way, shape, or form, avoidant and dismissive.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So imagine, you know, you got a person, like a brother who is, you know, I'll use relationships, and for whatever reason, you know, that young lady's like, man, he like doesn't like when I touch him this way, or he dismisses like certain things that I say to kind of affirm him or empower him or encourage him. And then that's my female voice. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get with the guy, he's like, yeah, no, I just don't like the way that makes me think or process. Like I'm hard, you know, I'm
straight.
That makes me feel soft.
I don't do all that kissy, you know, love you, like,
or I'm very direct in the way I communicate about certain things in life. And she, you know, she trying to soften me up, you know, soft, you know what I'm saying? And that's not something that I really want to do. Well, sometimes that goes back to the avoidant dismissive attachment that a person has in their life based off of sometimes, you know, I think about it in terms of expression of, I can relate this back to when that person might have been younger and that person, you know, really wanted support and affirmation and love at home from a mother figure or a father figure, unless maybe didn't get it.
Right.
And because they didn't get it, now they've established like not getting it with actually love. And so it's I dropped one right there. And so
we had the little claws, the cruise bomb thing, boom, like the bomb, we would drop it right now.
Right. And so now love based off of a lie or a false self out of that space of really wanting something that they didn't get looks like you don't treat me like this. Affirmation, support, encouragement, empowerment, touch, all these different factors that someone could give to you, and love looks the opposite of
all those things.
Ooh, and it's crazy.
That's crazy. That is crazy that you say that, because there's definitely a feeling of like that ain't what love is, but it is.
And this is just in a relational aspect. This is so much more.
Right. Okay.
Just scraping the surface.
Yeah, it took me a minute to digest that one. That's a real deal.
Yeah. And so there's more to that, but I think that, you know, just to introduce trauma back into the conversation again, that's what a lot of us deal with. What trauma does to an attachment style is it often creates a feeling of being disorganized and dismissive, meaning that we really can't make sense of any sense of what it means to trust, to love, to have friendship, to be encouraged. It's like all over the place because, you know, we can't connect to anything solid and wanting to attach to anyone or anything that could be healthy for us because of our own experience. And so that's just 3 or 4 of the various different attachment styles. There's so many more, but in that space, we're looking at what it means to be insecure in attachment. That's what ends up happening to people. And so they end up having these attachment issues.
Wow. So how do you help men in relationships navigate communication problems with their significant other? Right?
Who's asking this question? I was like,
He said, all right, we'll cut that.
Oh, that's
Stop
funny.
the recording. I actually need to know.
Wait, who's asking this
I'm on the chopping block.
We all ask this question.
Exactly.
I will not divulge that information.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, how do you help men in relationships navigate communication problems with their significant other?
Yeah. I'm gonna throw another name out there. There's this guy by the name of John Gottman. There are people who are these licensed and trained Gottman therapists, which I am not, but I do use some of their tools and things because I went through the training. And so John Gottman talks about, man, so many really cool concepts when it comes to communicating with our peoples that we want to love on. And, you know, one of them is just this idea of open-ended communication, like depending on how we are as men, our history in relationships, our history in just talking with people that we want to be with or that want to be with us. You know, in that space, in many cases, sometimes it's hard to actually be assertive in our communication. We become passive or we become, you know, really aggressive, you know, in the frame of our communication.
Yeah, it's like you either you don't care to say anything or you want to control the entire thing.
And I think that in that space, it's an opportunity for us to get to a space where if we want to be open-ended communication, it means assertiveness in an aspect of recognizing the wants, the needs, you know, understanding what are people's likes and dislikes right now. Because let me tell you this, I'm going to tell you my own experience with my wife. Like, over the course of 8 years, she and I have changed and evolved so much. And in that space, we've had to make room for what that means. And so if we're trying to communicate in a relationship, I can't be stagnant and thinking that, well, it's just you, the one that I dated and hung out for a year to two, and that's what I'm going to get because it's predictable. And in open communication, nothing's predictable, because this person is always being informed by their choices, their directives, their world they live in, all these different types of things that are making this person change every day.
What does that evolution look like for you communication-wise?
Right.
Like when you're married first year, second year, you have a level of communication I'm sure it's comfortable for you both.
You do. It's all like, puppy love.
Yeah, that's what I say. I call it the glittery.
Glittery.
Right, glittering. Yeah, I still can't say the word. Say it for me, Sammy.
Glittering.
Yeah, we're calling that one stage, right? And where everything's just shiny and it's just it looks good.
And all that glitters ain't gold, right? We hear that phrase all the time.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And so you get past that first couple of years of relationship, or how many ever, some people's 10 years is all glittering. And then all of a sudden life hit. You go through something, you lose something, and there's grief that involved, and all of a sudden that person changed. You get pregnant. Sex changes. You have kids. Your relationship changes, right? And so all these aspects are impacting you and the person you're in relationship, yourself and the person that you're in relationship with. And then all of a sudden, how you communicate from day to day also has to adjust and evolve and change. And how it does that in many cases is the way that we treat each other and the things that we acknowledge. One thing that got me, I love that he talks about this, is when we are needing to do this idea of turning toward, in quotation marks, turning toward.
Gotcha.
Like in turning toward, it's really the idea of we have to be aware of our spouses or partners or persons' bids and cues.
Bids and cues.
I'm about to talk about it.
Yeah,
You're like, what?
I'm so interested.
What is this
I'm ready,
right now?
I'm ready
What's
to stand
the bids
up.
and cue?
Bids and cues. What's that?
You know, a cue is me. I'm the bros. You know what I'm saying? But you know, a cue meaning, you know, like CUE, like in that space of, let's just say, I'm gonna give you an example, and I wrote it down so that way I was clear. Yes, you know, let's just say, for example, that your spouse or person or partner, whatever, is talking to you in the kitchen, right? And you got the game on, you trying to watch what's going on. Detroit Lions, go Lions. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to watch what's happening with them all of a sudden. And
we're talking about them. We ain't even finna say nothing about them boys. But we gonna pray for y'all. We hope y'all have a good season. That's all I'm gonna say.
All I'm gonna say is they 1-1 though.
Yeah, they are.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I give you that.
My man.
They are, respectfully.
Right. They fair. And so, like, you watching the game, your person begins to talk to you, and in that frame, you be like, oh, okay, yep, that's good, that's what's up, and then you back in the game. Well, was it that what they wanted to say was important enough for you to acknowledge or aware, or was it that they just wanted to talk? And sometimes I'm not like, yeah, they just talking.
Right.
I'm used to that. I'm used to years and years of my spouse kicking it and talking with me, and my mind blank out to something that's more possibly important or not important.
Right. But in the time, it feels like it's more
attention is on
important,
something
honestly.
else.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we think about, okay, you have to notice the bids and cues of your partner. The bids and cues of them might be that they actually just wanted some intentional time to actually communicate and kick it with you. Was it about a date, or was it about the time involved in having quality and quantity time with that person? Was it about, oh, you know what, this thing happened to me today? Or was it actually about, yo, I really had this challenging day and you're the best person or the most adult person that I've had a chance to talk to all day? Right? It's about the reason behind the reason. And if you notice their talking, you notice their tone of their voice, you notice the body language that they're having, those are all bids and cues for attention that we have to turn toward to be able to understand what's going on with the person that we're talking to. And that's not even talking about just us.
Right.
Let's talk about us for a second.
Relationship. Yeah. Okay. So back to you. How do you turn towards your own?
Right. For myself.
Yeah,
right. For me. Or I want you to turn for me. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? For the boy. You know what I'm saying? For the boy himself. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that that's where we have to, there's a place of vulnerability that we have with the person that we're in relationship with that a lot of times has to increase and has to be open, because sometimes when we're talking and sharing about things that are on our hearts and minds, just like we want that person wants us to turn toward them, we want them to turn toward us. And those issues can be anything from the house issues to the job issues to the children to the sex. All those types of things are playing a role in terms of how we are navigating things. And I think in that way, what ends up happening is, I think for us, because sometimes, the people that we're in relationship with are judging us or judging how we have always dealt with things, because and sometimes we can be very routine or be super creative and all over the place. That's just him. Well, allow me to evolve too, but let me communicate to you in a way that says, hey, this is how I'm evolving, and this is what I'm aware of to be able to help you help me.
Right.
And we have to do that by writing it down, right? Writing it down, I think that means also, we use this thing called I statements. I statements is something that typically in every relationship counseling that I've ever done or that anybody's ever done, where we are teaching the man or the other person, to be able to say, I want you to use 4 statements. And I'm gonna give them to you right now.
Appreciate you.
So I statements begin with I feel.
Okay.
I feel something. I feel this specific feeling without an explanation. For example, I feel sad, right? For whatever reason as a man. And then we begin to say when you, right? So this is outward now, because you're getting ready to state a specific behavior that you're addressing. So I feel sad when you come over later than expected, right? Third part is because now you're going to state the impact of that actual behavior. Okay. I feel sad when you come over an hour later than you promised because I feel I'm not important.
Oh.
Yeah.
And this is an exercise that you're doing with your partner.
Yes.
In real time. With yourself.
With language that you both can begin to understand.
Yeah.
Intentional language.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that last part is I need or want. Like you're expressing your need and want because you're getting ready to clearly state your request. So I need or want more time together. At the end of the day, I said all this because I'm trying to express this inert core need that I feel like you aren't allowing to actually happen, or you're dismissing, or that we just want to work on because it's actually going to benefit us or benefit me. And so as a man, it's getting a chance to just now clearly state with language that you both can understand something that really helps you communicate with a clear understanding.
Gotcha. I want to walk down that path. I feel happy right now because
that's fair.
I have brothers in the room that are like-minded. I could call at any time, they'll pick up, right? And what's my last piece?
Because what do you need and want out of that?
Because I need the brotherhood, and I want to be there for you all, which is totally honest, for real. I'm looking both of y'all, everybody in this room, and I'm saying that.
Yeah, man.
That's my first time going through that exercise. That's a real one. That's a real one that you can take home with you today, right now, listening to this, and implement it. I'm gonna look at the camera because implementation is big, and you can do it. okay, you can do it.
I know a lot of these traumas and just things that we've experienced as a human race at this point has really compiled through these daunting and treacherous years of COVID. I truly do think we're coming to, a more peaceful space in the COVID era.
Right.
But nonetheless, COVID is still around, still very dangerous. Make sure you practice, safe protocols and all that. Get your shots, do whatever you got to do to make sure you and your family's safe. But nonetheless, how do we get back to life as we know it?
Yeah, I'm gonna make this real simple, man. It's like my ending statement.
Okay.
I think number one, I think we have to rediscover what we enjoy. Rediscover what we enjoy, and I'm gonna put a button there. But rediscover something that doesn't make you create an addiction, and that doesn't make you mask your behavior. Because in that space, all COVID did is feel like it put a mask on you.
Right. Yeah. No, on the whole another
No
one.
pun intended.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, let me be real with y'all. The pun when I'm talking about the pun went straight over my head. You know what I'm saying? But
I'm
here with you now.
But I'm
But you
saying
serious,
it, but I'm
though.
saying it from
Yeah.
a face of that doesn't mask your behavior. That's in or out. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? That's not a political thing at all. And so I want you to begin to, as a man or wherever you are, whenever you are, wherever you are, to rediscover what you enjoy. Second thing I would say is to create a place to cope. One of my favorite sayings, I even made a journal with a cover on it. It says, create to cope.
Create to cope.
Like literally we have to create the place where we can do what we love to do. Create a place where we can enjoy the rediscovery process, because in that it allows you to really see how and who God created you to be at the end of the day. And so when you create that place, journal from that place, date from that place, explore your identity from that place, and that place can be anywhere and anyhow you want to make it, you know what I'm saying? And that's a huge part of it. And the third thing I'll say is just challenge yourself to grow. Like, I think that could be environmentally, culturally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Like, we got to challenge ourselves to grow in the season, because COVID made you grow out of force. Now that COVID is passing, we could go back to all the things that we know and do. And or we can challenge ourselves to grow organically.
Right.
And that means just naturally, just find ways to challenge yourself to grow with a book,
Anything.
with a person, with
A sport,
school,
anything you want to do.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. But like you say, there's two things that you got to stay mindful of, and not creating an addiction that's unhealthy for yourself. And that goes back to what you said earlier, the community piece. You're able to get outside now and get in front of people. So that's another opportunity for you to hear stories from other men and tell your story, because you are appreciated. Your voice and your story is needed for impact.
That's a heck of a sign off right there. If you ask me.
And I got one last thing. I know he said that's his sign off, but I got one last thing for you. And based on your experience as the lead therapist at the Wisdom Counseling Service Center, what is one thing that you hope our listeners take away? Just one simple piece outside of the COVID. What is one thing outside of the COVID? What is one thing you hope that for them to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I think for my brothers, all right, I'm gonna be specific. For my brothers, I want you to get a chance to really enjoy community, and I'm gonna say community, and I want to give you a new way of looking at this as well. Community can also be what we consider and call a circle of accountability. And the circle of accountability is simply this. You got your peers. You got people that you haven't been cooking it up with. Do it. Fellowship with them. Like, get out there. See somebody you haven't seen in a while. Talk to a brother, a friend, a cousin that you consider this person is on the same level I am. Secondly, find someone who is not on the same level with you. Twofold. One, someone who can therapize with you, who can shepherd you, who can mentor you, coach you, help you go to the next level in your life. And then the second fold of that is find somebody that you can pour into, who's younger than you, who doesn't have as much experience in you, who is a family member coming up, or someone that's at your a kid of a parent at your job or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Do something there. You're pouring into somebody else. And that is real true community for me. Like you're a brother that's pouring into brothers, that has brothers that's pouring into you, and has someone who can really directly help you in your life. Go somewhere that you do not have access.
Yeah.
You know, and that sometimes mean also going to a therapist. And so that's when I say community, that's what I mean, the circle of accountability that helps you grow as a man.
We appreciate that. That is some of the finest words I've heard in a while. We have Sammy Jones, the man, the myth, the legend, right?
Boom.
Boom.
Dynamite.
Right. Calvin's got we got some fun things now here on the back end for you.
Yeah, now we're really gonna take a pivot. I would like to say into
strong
a segment
pivot.
we like to call Spin the Wheel. Right. So we have 5 categories in which you pick from. You just pick a number 1 through 5.
Yep.
And we surprise you with, I don't know.
It'll be a
what-
topic.
it'll
So
be a
we're
topic.
going to
It'll be
surprise you with a
something.
topic or game, right? And you're going to participate, right? So here are
Y'all knew this was happening?
here are the options in no specific order, okay? You have word association, which is a topic, guilty pleasures, unpopular opinions, there's a surprise, and then there's story time, okay? Story time is simply you have to tell a story that's directly connected to the topic, and you have to be vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
All right?
Not picking that one.
No. Well, you won't know until you say a
It's
number.
all up to
All right,
random.
brother man?
The wheel might get you.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Numbers 1 through 5.
2.
2. Perfect. That one is guilty pleasure.
Yes, that's what I was going to
There
say.
we go.
That boy a prophet.
That's okay. So go ahead and we're all gonna go. But you start us off. What's a guilty pleasure or pleasures that you have?
Oh, man. Guilty pleasure. I'm trying to be surface, y'all. I'm not trying to be shallow. Guilty pleasure, man. Oh, like when I go on vacation, we talked about masks and behaviors.
Yeah.
When I go on vacation, I don't just be Sammy Jones. I turn into that dude, Sam Jones.
That guy.
That guy.
Mr. Jones
guy.
You know what I'm saying?
himself.
Like, who is he?
Sammy Special.
Like, man,
He's him.
Like,
That's him.
Yeah, man.
What
That's
does
like
that look
Superman.
like on vacation?
That's Superman. Oh man, y'all should see me. I'm Dapper Dan's. They call me Dapper Sam. Dapper Sam. And you know this is true because you can ask my wife.
Don't play with
ask my
this
wife.
man,
You can ask my
huh?
wife. Dapper Sam, because Sam come out styling, profiling. You know what I'm
3
saying?
fits for the day.
Oh, you know,
Nothing less.
4 fits for the
We're
day.
going back and changing if something hits the. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, I'm fly. They're like, man, ladies pass by like, who's that guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they, you know what I'm saying? So,
What shorts you wearing? Below the knee, or high, above the knee?
oh, it's above, baby.
I like
Got to.
that. Respect
Got
that.
to.
I like that.
It's
I like that. You got to
2022.
show them thighs now. You know what I'm saying?
2022, gentlemen.
Defined.
We are men 2.0 now. You know what I'm saying? We showing them knees.
Upgraded version.
We don't go to the gym for no reason.
They
now.
call them hoochie daddy shorts.
Hoochie daddy shorts.
I'm giving y'all vernacular. I'm giving y'all a part of Sam the therapist that you have never seen.
Hey, we're gonna start charging next. No, I'm
for
just
real.
kidding. All right. So I guess I'll go with my guilty pleasure. So I stay up late at night, right? That's just my thing. Everybody knows Kaylon's up. But not only am I up, I will attack the variety bag of hot chips, which doesn't do well for my stomach in the mornings. But I already know it's coming. I ain't gonna lie, and I'm getting the hottest ones. Y'all know the purple bags. Any bag that's purple is hot,
Oh my goodness.
right?
Reaper hot.
Man, and I love it when my girlfriends sleep already. Because I could just go through 5 quarter bags of chips. No questions being asked, no sharing. And I'm banging them out. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's my guilty pleasure.
Kaylon is a bag of chips' worst enemy.
In the moment, I feel great. I ain't gonna lie. I'm living my best life.
Fair.
You know what I'm
See,
saying? Can't tell me
my
nothing.
guilty pleasure revolves around food too. It's the delivery services like Uber Eats and DoorDash and stuff. Like you spend $30 more than you normally would, but it's something about just sitting on the couch,
Just knowing it's coming, huh?
hearing that.
I like that.
But yeah.
I like that.
And that wraps up guilty pleasures. We'll
does.
go into quote of the day,
Yep.
which Kaylon will read off for us.
Yep. Quote of the day. This one it's a good one. Nurturing yourself is not selfish. It's essential to your survival and your well-being. And that's from Renee Peterson Trudeau. I wanted to make sure I said her name right. So yeah, I'll say this again for everybody. Nurturing yourself is not selfish. It's essential to your survival and well-being. And I think that's a great quote given everything that we've talked about today when it comes to so-called being a man. I hope that we can redefine that for everyone. And it drives community and comfortability and a safe space. The last thing we have is our community spotlight. And can you guess who we're going to spotlight in our community?
Ooh.
Looks like we have the Wisdom Center Counseling Services. Tell us everything we need to know about Wisdom Center Counseling Service, where we can find you, and what people need to do to get in contact with you.
Yeah, definitely. So Wisdom Center Counseling Services is located off of 52nd in Kalamazoo. You can't miss it. Big sign, big parking lot. You can reach us through our website at www.theprincipalthing.com, and principal as in PLE. Not PAL. And with that, you can also email us at wisdomcenterinfo@gmail.com just to get a hold of us, or go through our website, and you can call us at 616-419-8103, where we help to give you well-being one day at a time and help make your world a more manageable space. And we'd love to take you in as a client because we are accepting new clients currently.
Awesome.
We love it. They got their Facebook and IG as well. Wisdom Center Counseling.
Yep, that's Facebook and Instagram. Again, Wisdom Center Counseling. And I mean, that's just.
I might change the name. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Nah, I like it.
I'm going to just call it That Dude.
That
Sam
Dude
Jones Counseling.
Dapper Sam Counseling.
That'll get you some clients, bro.
Hey, I want.
That's what I'll know it as.
I want intellectual property on that too.
I bet you do. Oh, man.
All right. Well,
but yeah, that is that's an official wrap. That's a wrap on episode 1. A beautiful episode. Again, thank you so much for being here and being our first guest on the official podcast of the Grand Rapids African American Health Institute, Curated Conversations. The reason why we're all here today, and we even have Samuel Jones with us, is to educate the masses on the pillars on which GRAAHI operates, which is care, community, advocacy, research, and education. And
100%. Appreciate you, Sammy. And I got a feeling this ain't going to be your last episode with us. We got more to talk about.
Part 2 coming real soon, folks.
So we'll see. Thank you, Sammy.
But nonetheless, a lot of fun. Thanks again. And, stay tuned. We got plenty more episodes to come. And this is just the start.
Peace.
We're your hosts, Calvin.
This is Kaylon. We out.
Bada bing, bada boom.